March 2013. The city of Baltimore wakes up to a scene that feels more like a military lockdown than a law enforcement action. 60 federal agents in full tactical gear surround the Baltimore City Detention Center. Streets are sealed off. Radios crackle with constant updates. But this isn't about stopping an escape. It's about reclaiming a jail that has quietly fallen under someone else's control. Inside the building, one inmate sits calmly in his cell, unaware that his reign is about to end. He isn't hiding. He isn't nervous. Because, for years, nothing inside these walls has happened without his approval. He eats better than most people on the outside. He earns more money than the guards assigned to watch him. He decides who is protected, who is punished, and who is left exposed. Drugs, phones, violence, and loyalty, it all flows through him. Multiple correctional officers have personal relationships tied to him. Some are even carrying his children, while others have marked their loyalty permanently. This is not survival. This is domination. His name is Tavon White. This is not just a story of corruption. It's a lesson in how an institution can deteriorate so completely that an inmate can step into the vacuum and become the authority itself. The Baltimore City Detention Center is one of the oldest jails in the United States. It opened in 1859, long before electricity, modern plumbing, or modern correctional standards. By the time Tavon White arrived in 2009, the facility was in visible decline. Mold spread across the walls. Rodents moved freely through corridors at night. Security cameras stayed broken for months. Heating systems failed every single winter, while air conditioning never existed at all. Cells designed for another century were overcrowded with men trapped in heat, tension, and frustration. The guards were exhausted, underpaid, and fearful. Many earned less than fast food managers while supervising inmates accused of serious crimes. Staffing shortages were routine, violence was constant, contraband was widespread, and leadership was largely absent. Former guards later described parts of the jail as simply unbearable. This was no longer a functioning institution. It was a structure running on pure neglect. Tavon White entered this environment awaiting trial for attempted murder. On paper, he was just another inmate facing significant time. In reality, he was a member of the Black Guerrilla family, a prison gang that had been steadily expanding its influence inside Baltimore's correctional system. Where the state saw disorder, the gang saw opportunity. Tavon didn't announce himself as a leader. He observed quietly. He watched other gangs fight each other over territory and status. He noticed guards avoiding confrontation and administrators relying on informal arrangements to prevent total chaos. It quickly became clear that real authority was missing. Power belonged to whoever could impose consistency and control. Leadership followed naturally. Tavon had a reputation for violence, but also for discipline. When fights erupted in the chow hall, he intervened. When rival groups clashed in the showers, he mediated. And each time he stepped in, the conflict ended. Inmates began seeking him out, not just out of fear, but because he brought stability. Violence decreased, not because the jail improved, but because crossing him carried serious consequences. The guards noticed as well. Many were young and overwhelmed. Some were indifferent. Others were already compromised. The ones who wanted to enforce the rules understood that doing so could make them targets. Management remained distant. At one point, jail officials even held meetings with gang representatives to negotiate calm, sending a clear message that the institution had lost control. Tough to fill the void. /Key built a disciplined group of enforcers within the Black Guerrilla family. Soon, an unwritten rule spread through the jail. Nothing happened without his approval. Disputes, assaults, protection, even inmate movement passed through his informal system. In later recordings obtained by investigators, he explained it plainly. Before anything happened, it went through him. By 2012, Tavon White was the uncontested power inside BCDC. He didn't rule by fear alone. He ruled by providing something the jail no longer could. Order, but control alone wasn't enough. To turn influence into an empire, money was essential. Contraband had always existed inside the jail, but it was scattered and small-scale. Tavon envisioned something organized. A controlled market. A supply chain. The jail held more than 2,000 inmates, many struggling with addiction and boredom. Demand was constant. Competition was limited. And since Tavon controlled the violence, he controlled the market. He began cautiously, identifying guards willing to bend the rules. At first, it was minor items. Over time, the operation expanded. Cell phones became the most valuable commodity. A cheap prepaid phone on the street sold for hundreds of dollars inside. Prescription pills, tobacco, and outside food followed. Everything had a price. The system ran with precision. Guards smuggled items concealed in clothing or on their bodies. Gate searches were inconsistent and sometimes deliberately ignored. Once inside, trusted inmates distributed the goods across different housing units. This wasn't occasional smuggling. It was organized and routine. The profits were substantial. Wiretaps later captured Tavon, stating that even during slow periods, he earned tens of thousands of dollars, attacked from inside a jail. Many guards earned far less in an entire year. To manage the money, Tavon relied on prepaid debit systems. Funds were loaded remotely by people on the outside and moved through coded transactions. The system was efficient and difficult to trace. He had created a financial pipeline connecting the streets directly to the jail. With money came influence. Tavon purchased luxury items, paid bribes, and rewarded loyalty. Guards who cooperated received gifts, cash, and protection. The operation became sustaining. Everyone involved had something to lose. Yet, one risk remained: guards who couldn't be bought. Tavon understood leverage. Money worked, but it wasn't always enough. What he discovered was something more effective: personal manipulation. At BCDC, a large portion of the correctional staff was female, many young and underpaid, working under constant stress. Tavon offered attention, validation, and a sense of safety. Conversations began casually. Trust developed slowly. He made people feel seen in a place designed to exhaust them. He reversed the power dynamic. The inmate became the protector. Units under his influence became calmer. Incidents stopped. Favors escalated. Gifts followed. Boundaries eroded. Professional lines were crossed. And information flowed. Tavon received warnings before searches. Contraband disappeared ahead of inspections. The system adjusted itself around him. Several correctional officers became personally involved with him. Some used their positions to influence housing assignments and discipline. Tavon could isolate his enemies and protect his allies, using official procedures. To everyone watching, the message was unmistakable. He was in control. By late 2012, his dominance was complete. He lived comfortably, ate food from outside sources, watched television, and spoke openly on contraband phones. He coordinated gang activity beyond the jail walls, influencing operations and intimidation from behind bars. The detention center had become a hub for organized crime. That level of confidence eventually drew attention. Federal investigators began noticing irregularities, unexplained wealth, a rise in illegal phones, and rumors that were too consistent to ignore. Because local leadership couldn't be trusted, the FBI approached the jail carefully. They tapped phones, tracked financial records, and quietly built a case. Tavon did not see it coming. In April 2013, the operation unfolded. Federal agents and state troopers entered the facility. Guards arriving for work were arrested. Cell blocks were locked down. There was no resistance. The network collapsed in a single morning. Dozens of people were charged, including multiple correctional officers. News coverage spread nationwide. The public was stunned. Officials apologized. Investigations followed. 2. The system stood exposed. Facing overwhelming evidence, Tavon chose cooperation. He entered a plea agreement and testified against others involved. In court, he explained how the entire operation worked, from recruitment to the money flow. Many who had trusted him listened as he spoke openly. His sentence ran alongside the time he was already serving. He received no additional punishment for running the jail. Others received years behind bars. In total, around 40 people were convicted or pleaded guilty. City Detention Center permanently closed in 2015. Reforms were promised, but the damage was done. Tavon White faded from the headlines. The man who ruled the jail paid little extra for his empire. The story leaves an unsettling truth. Walls do not enforce order. People do. When systems fail, power will always find a place to settle. Tavon White did not destroy the institution alone. He simply exploited one that had already collapsed. That is how a prisoner became the law, until the law finally stepped in. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden corners of history. See you next time.